Welcome back to another episode of the Boro4Boro podcast, where we take a bite out of the Big Apple real estate scene. I'm Matthew Wynter, and I'm really excited for this episode because this is the first time that we're going to be introducing a featured guest. Can't wait for you to learn a little bit more about how amazing she is and the great work that she does in the industry. But for today's episode, before you do anything, make sure you like, subscribe, follow, do all of the things you got to do to make sure that you can catch up on every single episode previously and those moving forward. So team, what's going on? How you guys doing?
Good.
Happy summer.
Good, man.
Yes.
Yeah, summer's here.
So we have our illustrious guest, the one and only Jacqueline Gathers.
How are you?
Greetings all. I'm happy to be here.
Really excited to have you here. So Jacqueline, obviously we're familiar with you, but for those at home who are not familiar both with you and what you do, tell everyone at home why you're so amazing.
Okay, so again, my name is Jacqueline Gathers. I'm a New York State licensed home inspector and owner of Pillar to Post Home Inspections.
Awesome.
Inspection. So inspections is, as we know as realtors, is one of those things that depending on the side of the transaction you're on, you're either excited for it,
Right.
you're either like, all right, I got to get this done, or you're dreading it.
Yeah.
But very rarely do I think we ever actually talk to an inspector and hear more about what the actual inner workings are and what they're looking for, because we always just look for the report just to be like, all right, what's going on? But Jacqueline, how long have you been in the industry?
I've been in the industry in business for 6 years. Fun fact, I actually retired from the New York City Housing Authority after 30 years of service before I ventured into the home inspection industry.
Okay, so that's how one ends up as an inspector.
Sorta.
Sorta. Okay. And then is it what you thought it would be?
No, actually, before I got into the inspection industry, I knew nothing about home inspections. I actually inherited the business from my late husband. He had brought the franchise in 2016, and unfortunately, he was diagnosed with cancer, so I lost him in 2017.
Sorry to hear.
So thank you. So I had the
His
option.
legacy.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So I had the option of selling the franchise back, but I decided to get the business up and running in his memory. So that's kind of my story.
And you're still around. Look at that.
Yes.
Yes, and thriving. And there's a random fact that I want you to make sure that you focus on, because your business is unique because of what?
I'm the only black female inspector in New York City when I started. That might have changed by now. And I'm the first African-American woman to own a Pillar to Post home inspection franchise.
I feel like we got to give a clap for that.
I know, right? We got to get some studio sounds. Yes.
Yeah.
No, so that's amazing. And I think, obviously, you and I have done a lot of business together. You've
Yes.
been instrumental in a lot of the work that I've done recently. But I want us to take it all the way back to, I know I'll reach out to you, say, Jacqueline, I got this client. We're about to, usually it's at the 11th hour. I don't even know if that's right. But we'll say, Jacqueline, I have this property. Can you and your team come in? Is that the right way to engage an inspector? Like, when is the right time for someone who's buying or even considering buying? When should they actually be engaging an inspector?
So I teach the home inspection component to first-time home buyers. That's my specialty. So I always tell them, as soon as your offer is accepted, get the home inspection scheduled. So that's how our schedule works. Sometimes we'll have a client email me 10 o'clock at night and say, I need something tomorrow. I always keep a block of time set off on my calendar for my preferred realtors. So if they need something last minute, we can accommodate them. So we tell them, get it done as soon as possible. You know the market in New York. You have to keep the process going. And I tell first-time home buyers, they start telling me, oh, well, next week. Why would you wait till next week? You know, you're going to make the seller antsy that you're looking at other houses. Right. They might have other buyers in line. Right. So you want to keep the process moving as quickly as possible. That's why, you know, we're in demand, because we can get you an appointment the next day.
Nice.
As you know, you get the report the same day.
Oh, that's good.
So we try to keep the process moving, and that's what we kind of specialize in, because New York is a different market.
Yeah.
This is not Alabama or Mississippi. People want things yesterday, and we have to be able to accommodate them.
And I was going to add to that, you know, unlike other states in New York, you have to do your inspection right away because your accepted offer, it doesn't mean that you have the house or the apartment. Mm-hmm. You have to do the inspection first to know what you're getting into, and then you can move forward. But in other states, you can do everything quickly.
Yeah. Okay. Do people get access to you personally, or is it like, I know you have a company?
I have a team.
So you have a team.
So every now and then I'll do a co-op or condo, but I really spend my time growing the business, the marketing, making sure the schedule's in place. If someone wants to talk to somebody, by all means, I'm the person that they would talk to. We use a call center that manages the schedule, and now our clients can schedule their appointments online because new millennials, they don't like to talk to people.
No.
It's a text, it's through the call center, it's online, and if they have a question, we'll email back and forth. So I kind of make myself available behind the scenes for the clients. A lot of times, first-time home buyers, they're very nervous.
Right.
You know, they might be the first person in their family to purchase a property, and they don't have 3 generations of family members to talk to about the whole process. So this is why I make myself available to make sure that they're comfortable moving forward with the process, that they understand how important the home inspection is. And sometimes they just get nervous and they want somebody to talk to. So I kind of make myself available for stuff like that.
Awesome.
Nice.
Yeah.
I guess, okay, so one of my questions is, for like new home buyers, like you said, what are some of the major items that you would advise someone to look out for?
So when I talk to first-time home buyers, I compare the house with them and make it really simple to your body. If my nail is broken, I can go to the nail salon. They'll charge me a pretty penny, but they'll make it look like new.
Right.
If there's something wrong with my heart, that's going to affect how my body operates. And it's the same thing with a house. We don't care about missing doorknobs, ugly vanities, shag rugs. We focus on the major components of the house, just like your body. We want to know about the roof, the electrical, the plumbing, the foundation, all those major items that are big ticket items that's going to affect how that house is going to operate. So we have to train our first-time home buyers when they walk in and the screen door is hanging off. We don't care about that.
Right.
That's an easy fix. I try to get them to focus on the major components of the house because that's what you want to make sure the bones of the house are really good. The aesthetic stuff, it's easy. It's an easy fix. It's just cosmetic.
Yeah.
And to that point, is there something that more often than not in New York City you find that whether it's a faucet or something that's with the boiler, like is there something that comes up more often than not?
What we find in co-ops and condos is moisture. Okay, this is why we always tell them you need to have that infrared scanning done because sometimes, you know, and this is New York City, there was a leak, okay. They plastered, they painted over, but the moisture's still there. The leak was not resolved. And you know, when you leave moisture in a wall, it's going to turn to mold. Right. You don't see it, but you're breathing in those spores. Right. So that infrared scanning is really important with co-ops and condos. We find a lot of moisture. Houses, typical stuff. For some reason, New Yorkers just don't go in their basements. They don't look at the exterior of the house, and they don't go in their attics. So those are the areas where we find problems. Sometimes there's moisture in the basement, and we say, okay, well, there's a piece of 2x4 siding missing on the side of the house that no one paid attention to. That water's been coming in for years and created moisture. So certain things, New Yorkers are busy. They're working, they come in, they go out, they go in their bathrooms, they go in their kitchens, but they don't go in their attics, they don't go in their basements, and they don't look at the exteriors of their houses.
Yeah. Now, going on from that question, right, within the 5 boroughs, do you see certain, I guess, issues that occur more in certain boroughs because of that way the houses are built? Like in Queens, there's more like frame houses, in Brooklyn, more brownstones. Do you see different issues in different boroughs or more or less the same around New York?
More or less the same because, you know, the Bronx has brownstones too. In the South Bronx, there are
Say that
brownstones
again.
there.
Right,
I grew up in the
exactly.
Bronx. So I know the Bronx really well.
Likewise.
They have
Tell us.
brownstones there, and people don't pay attention to. There's always issues with the brownstones with the piping underground. Brooklyn too. Those brownstones, they renovate them from top to bottom.
Yeah.
But sewer scope inspections are important for brownstones because a lot of times the pipes are over 100 years old. They're decaying, and no one pays attention to see what's going on with those pipes. But everything else is renovated. That we found. And in Flatbush, My Caribbean families like to expand their basements. And what they
Legally,
do
of
is
course,
they
right?
take down pillars and they remove walls in the basement without bringing in a structural engineer. And sometimes the floor starts to sink over time. So we always tell our clients, before you take any walls down, any pillars down, anything in that basement, bring in a structural engineer. Because he's going to be the one to tell you which wall is the supporting wall, which are main beams that cannot come down. He'll let you know what cannot come down. Because when you call the contractor in first, he's going to do what you tell him. He gets paid, he's gone, and then, you start having problems. So we always tell them before they do a major renovation, reach out to us. We archive all our reports. Our relationships with our clients, honestly, it doesn't end after the inspection. We're there for our clients before the inspection, during the inspection, and after the inspection. If they have questions, they can always give us a call 6 months later. If they're doing a renovation project, a lot of times they reach out to us when they're doing their insurance papers because some of the questions they're not sure how to answer. Well, what kind of roof do I have? So we just pull up the report and we let them know. So my business, honestly, is not revenue driven, it's people driven. Because I got into this industry to make sure that people got a quality home inspection done, and that's kind of the focus of my business.
Awesome.
Woo! That's great.
That
Awesome, yeah.
No, that's really
Snapping
good.
on that.
Okay. I want to ask
yeah.
a question in regards to FHA. When you're doing inspection for FHA homes, I mean, is it a different inspection? Or-
Well, the only thing you have to add on FHA and VA mortgages, you have to have a termite inspection done.
Okay.
So we always remind the clients. A lot of times they don't realize that until after the fact. And once I know it's that type of loan, I say, well, hey, you got to have a termite inspection. Well, I don't want, but that's part of they're going to come back to you. They're going to want that. That's a requirement for that type of mortgage.
Sure.
So it's the same quality inspection that we do across the board. Doesn't matter. We're going to check everything.
That's awesome.
And then I know we talked about the types of homes throughout the 5 boroughs, but obviously in New York City, we've talked about it a bunch on the pod, that majority of the apartments are co-ops and condos, and really co-ops. So I feel like there's maybe a misconception that we in the industry, people just believe that you don't need to inspect a condo or co-op. Is that true?
Absolutely not. Before the pandemic, Street Easy, once a year, they do a big home buyer seminar at NYU. So they asked me to come and speak about the home inspection component because they never had anybody talk about home inspections. And one of the things I kind of focused on was new construction, co-ops and condos. Absolutely, you need to have an inspection done. It's real estate. Again, this is not Mississippi where you're paying $56,000 for a co-op. Right. You're talking about $1.2 million in downtown Brooklyn. You want to make sure your property is protected. And I always tell the clients with new construction, we know Mercedes-Benz and BMWs are top of the line, but would you buy one without a test drive?
Wow.
Absolutely
not. That's a good way to put it.
Absolutely not. So it's the same thing with your new construction. Remember, no one's lived there. Right. We don't know if the toilet's flush. So you need to have somebody come in and check every component of that new construction. And I can tell you stories about what we find with new construction. HVAC systems put in backwards. Half the outlets do not work. They're not properly GFI'd in the kitchen and bathroom. So, co-ops, condos, new construction, very important that you have a home inspection done.
Yeah, I was going to say, just because it's a new dev doesn't mean that it doesn't have any issues. I feel like sometimes with punch lists with the new dev, you're allowed to go through the apartment 2-3 times, but there could be other issues because usually the building's not 100% completed.
Absolutely.
So there will be issues along the line.
And in most instances, I'm assuming they're trying to stay on a deadline too. So sometimes there could be some corners that are cut that an inspection could have caught.
Right.
A lot of times they take out inspection report, and that is the punch list.
Yeah.
So they use that as the punch list when we do the inspection.
So I'm going to ask you a question about some of your craziest stories. But going back to co-ops, right? Because I've recently had an experience with a nightmare broker. I don't know if I can say that, but she is a nightmare broker, right?
Just don't say her name, Tina.
Nightmare broker who wanted access to the mechanicals of the co-op. She wanted access to the mechanicals and the roof. I said, listen, I don't think that's necessary. I've sold in this building many times, and I've sold co-ops many times, and we've never done that. It's never been an issue. She was adamant. I asked the board president if we can get access, and they were actually doing work in the basement at the time, so they were like, we can't get access. But she was really throwing a fit. Going and doing the inspection of the mechanicals in a co-op, is that necessary? Is that something that should be done? Is that something that a buyer should look out for?
Okay, so a co-op is a little different. If the co-op is on the top floor, I can
Right.
justify going to the roof.
Yeah.
If the co-op is on the first floor,
Yeah.
I can justify going to the basement. If the co-op comes with storage space, like a lot of units come with storage space,
Right.
I can justify going to the basement.
Okay.
I'm pretty clear that if the mechanicals are shared, meaning the boiler and the hot water heater services the entire building, it's not going to go in the report.
Yeah.
But just to satisfy the client, I will go and take a look at it, and I might verbally tell them what I see if I see anything.
Right.
Mainly in the basements, what we kind of look for with co-ops is infestation,
Yeah.
because
Huge in New York.
they'll tell you how they're maintaining
Yeah,
their
yeah, yeah.
basements,
Right.
because the critters like to roam, and they're not going to stay in the basement.
Right.
So
Yeah,
if you're
yeah.
in the first floor unit, it might end up with infestation in your unit. And with co-ops, we always tell them, get the 6 months worth of minutes, because people go to meetings when they have a complaint, and that will be a window into how that building's being maintained. Because if everybody on the J line is coming to the meeting saying they can't get heat, or the hot water is really not that hot on that line,
Yeah.
that's a window into, perhaps the unit you're buying is on that line. So those minutes are really, really important.
Yeah. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Thank you for that. I'm going to send this clip to her.
Fact. And we definitely, there's a lot of stories, because I know she's sitting on a bunch of these stories that I want to hear. But how about this? Let's take a quick break. We'll come back, and then we're going to dive into some crazy, wild inspection stories that I'm sure
Sounds
Jacqueline
good.
can't wait to share.
Sounds good.
All right.
This beautiful set here at Studio 1873 is brought to you by the Everset. The Everset provides full-service staging and furniture rental solutions in the New York area. For more information, please visit us at staging.theeverset.com or email us at staging@theeverset.com to request a free proposal.
All right, so we are back. Everyone got topped off with some water, some drinks, but I'm looking at these cupcakes on these tables.
Cupcakes look amazing.
And
Yeah, they look yummy.
so what's going on here? What do we got, Isaiah?
So these cupcakes are from Yummy Tummy in Brooklyn. They're located over on 793 Grand Street in Williamsburg.
Okay.
Owner Melissa, a good friend, she does all her desserts from scratch.
Oh, wow.
I think she's there like Tuesday to Sunday. And people all over the borough and even outside the borough are going over there.
Cool.
So if you're paying a visit to Brooklyn, want some cupcakes, make sure you visit Yummy Tummy over on 793 Grand Street.
Wow.
All right, you give me a reason to go to Brooklyn. All right, I got you.
You're always in Brooklyn.
Don't let him
not-
fool you. He comes to Queens too. Don't let him fool you.
Rarely, but tuck in, let me know what you think.
I'm going to dive in.
I'm just,
These strawberry ones are
think
not
that's
the
what I
best.
No,
they're not the best.
No, you can leave them all for me.
Oh,
Just
they
don't
got
try.
cooties. All right,
No, I'm joking. Tuck in.
Jacqueline, I'll eat for you. I
You
know
eat for me.
I'll be a surrogate eater on this one. All right, so before the break, we were talking about, you started to share some stories, but look, even just from the things that we've worked on together, there's some crazy things that come up in inspections. What would you say is the most memorable thing to this day, whether it was any property type, that you're like, man, I'll never forget that inspection?
Oh, yeah. We did a 3-family in Brooklyn, Bushwick area. When we got to the property, the agent neglected to disclose that it was rooms, a bunch of rooms. So apparently the seller did not let the roomies know that he was selling the property, so they were quite upset. Some of them we couldn't get into. The ones we could get into, they had like one person that had keys to everybody's room. That's a suspect. He started opening the rooms, and one of the rooms we went into, there was weapons and drug paraphernalia.
Sounds like
And he
Brooklyn
was
for
like,
real.
"No, it's okay, sis. It's okay." I said, "No, it's not okay. We gonna pass on this one." So while we were trying to do the inspection, I looked out the window. One of them was outside cursing out the realtor. So I said, "You know what? I think we just gonna call this a wrap," and we just left.
I was about to say, did you
They passed the inspection, right?
Oh yeah, they
Flag
passed.
coming. Okay. So, unsurprising. We knew that. We saw that one coming. Okay.
Jacqueline, Obviously, the inspection is going to vary based on the type of property. But could you just give us a little bit more insight to some of our viewers who don't even know what an inspection is? Like, what kind of things are you looking for?
Okay, so we talked about the bones of the house. Every house has a roof. So we're going to check the roof. We're going to check the electrical. We actually take the electrical panel off so we can see if there's no double tapping or anything like that behind the panel and see what's going on there. We're going to check the plumbing. We turn on all the faucets. We flush every toilet. We normally like to start at the top, so if there's water, it's going to appear in the basement if there's any leaks or anything like that. We check windows, doors, the appliances. We check to make sure the floors are level. We check the entrance door. We just go into the closets. We scan to make sure, because a lot of times people have leaks in their closets. They don't pay attention to. They just take their clothes in and out, but they don't know what's going on in there. So we do a lot of scanning in the unit to make sure that there's no moisture that's being undetected. We check the exterior extensively. We look at the exterior, what the facade of the house is made of. We look to make sure the bushes are not too close to the house, because we always tell clients, when you have those bushes too close to the house, other pests and things can go right into your home because of that. So it should never touch the house. Any trees that need pruning. We look to see where the electrical is coming in, if it's coming in overhead or if it's underground. So it's a pretty extensive inspection. Our inspections are not quick. Depending on the square footage of the house, we could, on average, we spend at least 2 hours doing an inspection.
That sounds like a thorough inspection.
Yeah, and when we have a big property, like over 3,000 square feet, I send a team, because I feel like I want to make sure nothing is missed. So I'll have one person do the basement, the roof, and the exterior, and I'll have the second inspector do the inside.
Nice.
Sounds good.
Now, just piggybacking off that question, are there any questions that a buyer should be asking, particularly like a first-time home buyer? Are there any questions that you think they should?
So we always ask about renovations and warranties. So if the property had the roof done last year, normally they get a warranty. Sometimes it's 5 years, sometimes it's 10 years on that roof. The warranty follows the roof, not the seller. So we always try to tell the buyer to find out if anything recent work was done that was warranted, and make sure you get the information from the seller so that you can continue with the warranty in the event that something goes wrong. And we always if the buyer has good rapport and the seller is cooperative, because as you know, some sellers are not cooperative. Some sellers are not even here. They're in another state.
Exactly.
Find out who their handyman is. It's just so nice, because that handyman knows the house inside out. If he's had them for a while, you can just continue that relationship with them as opposed to vetting someone new. You already have someone that knows the house, that's worked with the house, so it's always a good idea to find out who that handyman is.
Yeah, I actually just had a townhouse sale, and my seller transferred the warranty to the new buyers, the appliances, the roof, everything. So they're already taken care of. And then also I gave them like a painter, a contractor, just to do some work. So
that's really important because you're starting out new. It's stressful enough. We always try to have a conversation with our investors, because our investors are kind of the worst. Because, as long as the rent is being paid, no one goes into the unit. No one goes into the house. No one checks on the house. And when they're ready to sell and we go out and do the inspection, because they're smart enough to do a pre-listing inspection to see what the issues are before they put the house on the market. And, we find all kinds of things that's just a result of poor maintenance. There was one house we did where there was a piece of siding missing. Wasn't even a huge piece, but for years, water was going in. And, the renter, they were paying their rent. They never looked at the side. And he ended up with moisture in the foundation. So like a $50 job ended up costing him $3,500 because he had all that moisture. So we always recommend, we have a type of inspection. It's called a maintenance checkup. We always tell our investors, even though the rent's being paid, this, that, and the other, and I always ask them, when was the last time you was in here? And they said, well, the tenant was good. I said, I know, but, things going on here. So you want to make sure every year or every other year, those investment properties, you have us come in and do a maintenance checkup just to check and see what's going on in the unit.
I bet. So I need to speak to you afterwards then.
Do you go
He
outside
said, "I am
of New
that
York?
invested as such."
No, I'm only licensed in New York City.
Okay.
Ah,
Okay.
Yeah, that's something that, remember you were at my seller seminar
Mm-hmm.
last year, and that's something we brushed upon is if you're a seller and you really are interested in putting your house on the market, you want to do a pre-inspection because oftentimes you don't know what's going on because you're just not
Absolutely.
aware, and the buyer will come in and all of a sudden you'll have a deal fall through because there's too much work that needs to be done
Absolutely.
on your house. So it's like take a step ahead and do the inspection. This way you know, because oftentimes I have sellers say, oh, well, can I see a copy of the report? It's like, nope, you can't because the buyer pays for
Right,
it.
exactly.
So they don't really owe you a copy. So.
And what we tell our sellers is that 40% of houses sell at or above when they get that pre-listing done, because you can use that inspection for three ways you can use it. Full transparency. You know, when a buyer sees that you were proactive and you had an inspection report done and you're willing to share it with them and told them, listen, our hot water heater was near the end of its life cycle. We replaced it. We did this, that, and that. These two things we're not going to do, but we can cost it out for you.
Sure. Right.
That's valuable.
Right.
Sometimes the seller doesn't want to share it. They use that report to fix everything. So when the buyer's inspector comes in, they don't find anything because you're ahead of the curve. Okay, no one likes surprises, you know, in the industry. And you know, you're selling your house. Why not invest the money and get the pre-listing inspection done? Or sometimes what they'll do with that report is they give the report to the buyer, and sometimes the buyer feels so confident that the buyer doesn't have an inspection done, depending on how far ago, how long ago that inspection was. So that's a valuable tool for our sellers. Because, again, that puts you in the driver's seat. You're not worried about the inspection because you've already had one done and you already know the issues. And you make a decision what you want to fix and what you don't.
and I can attest to that because not only did I work with your team on a pre-listing inspection, but as an agent, I would say it actually makes you look like a real expert at what you do to your seller. Because if you are recommending that, yes, it costs money. But if you are able to prevent them from potentially having to spend more money down the line, and let's say you find something which did actually occur, you know, I worked with your team and we did the pre-listing inspection. The seller initially was a little reluctant, but it's an older home, had admittedly not done a lot of things. And so all the things that we found, we addressed, and we were able to get that home sold above asking. And to this day, that seller still says, man, I'm so glad we caught it with that inspection.
Absolutely. And the seller, a lot of times, they're in denial. The house across the street sold for $1.2 million. They want the $1.2 million, but they haven't done any upgrades. So sometimes that inspection report is a wake-up call, like,
you got a lot of work to do.
You got a lot of work to do.
You got a lot of work.
And sometimes seller will focus on cosmetic upgrades, right? Like, oh, yeah, I'm going to change the vanity. I'm going to change this. But I would actually tell them to invest that money into a pre-listed inspection so that you can share any kind of conflicts later.
Sure.
That's true. I mean, look, obviously Isaiah speaks to and Scottie speak to kind of the investors who need to be able to be focusing on these things proactively. But really, I think it's pretty clear that anyone who is getting into any kind of real estate transaction from a sales standpoint needs to be able to inspect because it's better to get ahead of it versus not. But one question I always wanted to know is, you do the first inspection, something comes up, it gets addressed. Do you ever go back and do second inspections? Is that something that is normal?
Well, a lot of clients hire us to do the walkthrough. Because if the seller said they fix X, Y, and Z, and they're not comfortable, they will hire us to come back and do the walkthrough to make sure that the repairs were done, A, that they were done, and B, that they were done correctly.
Nice.
So I'm imagining there's levels to an inspection. So someone hires you, there's a base rate, but then there's the plus-ups that I'm assuming include that type of a service?
Well, what we do is we leave it up. It's a flat rate for that, depending on the square footage and depending on how many deficiencies we have to check. You know, my preferred realtors get a discount because they use me all the time. So, you know, we work with them. But, yeah, they like the idea of that because they said they fixed this, and sometimes it's not just turning on water. Now, sometimes it's an outlet that needs to be GFI'd. How do they know that? So they feel comfortable to call us back to do the walkthrough with them and go through all the repairs that allegedly were repaired. And sometimes they weren't done right, and then they look at the seller like,
So then you got to come back a third time.
No. That's when the price start dropping, concessions start. The contracts gets changed, and but nobody wants that. So
Nobody
they try
wants a
to do
third
the-
inspection.
Nobody wants a third inspection because then we're really annoyed and we're really looking. So
And the seller won't wait for
So let's sell this yesterday. Okay. Well, look, I learned a lot today. Unsurprisingly, I'm definitely one of those people who reaches out to Jacqueline just, hey, just curious in this situation.
So what type of new products and services do you have anything coming up?
Well, what we started doing, again, we had an increase in our pre-listing inspections. We started working with some investors that want to have their property checked. They haven't been in the property for years. They're thinking about selling, and some of them just want a general maintenance checkup. So we've been doing that. Also, the Brownstones, a lot of the Brownstones in Brooklyn, they're seniors that own them.
Sure.
We'll go in and do a maintenance checkup for them just before the winter starts. So we'll check the boiler, make sure there's no issues in the basement, check the roof, check the electrical, and do a general maintenance checkup to make sure there's no safety risk involved in the property.
Sounds good.
Out of curiosity, you keep mentioning investors. Do you also work with hard money lenders as well?
I don't.
No.
I mean, some of them reach out to me, but I don't specifically work with them
Okay.
because,
Okay.
I mean, I'm sure there's a lot of people who realize that they need an inspection for whatever reason, whether hard money lenders or otherwise. But anyone who needs to reach out to Jacqueline Gathers, how do they get in touch with you and your folks at Pillar to Post?
Okay, so you can call my direct cell. It's 917-670-8536. Or you can email me at jacqueline.gathers@pillartopost.com.
Good. You got any Instagram or anything like that?
You put my name in. I'm
Okay.
old school. I don't have fancy names. Just put in Jacqueline Gathers. I'll come up.
She's one of one. Nobody else out there. You were about to say something?
Now, I was going to say, I'm sure we'll put your information down when we post this online.
Okay.
I'm sure we'll have your information there for everyone to reach out to you.
Okay.
Well, thank you so much, Jacqueline.
Oh,
We're
you're
happy to have you.
welcome.
Thank you.
Our first
Happy
guest
to have
definitely won't be our last. So
Thank you.
Thank you for coming. Yep.
All right, so that's another episode of the Boro4Boro podcast. Hopefully you learned a lot today, and if nothing else, make sure you reach out to an inspector, preferably Pillar to Post, and make sure you follow us for the next episode in the series. Peace.